What's up, addicts? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. In this video, we are looking at Zach Ertz, tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles, going over his potential fantasy outlook for 2020. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button for more content like this, and let's get right into it. Zach Ertz is tight end 4. And I don't think there's really much more that really needs to be said, but we'll go into it. Zach Ertz is pretty much the pinnacle of consistency over the last couple of years. Definitely getting a little bit older, and we'll expect there to be a drop off at some point, but probably not going to be happening this season. Finished last year with 88 receptions, 916 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns in total. He did miss the last game of the season with a kidney laceration. Ouch. And not going to talk about that too much because that's gross. But fantasy points finished with fourth at the most at the position with 250.6, and fantasy points per game 14.4, which happened to be fourth. Overall, pretty decent season. You've got 5 games where he finished as a top 3 tight end. Very excited to have him in those weeks, and a couple others where he finishes as a top 6 in a top 12 tight end. Did have 5 weeks finishing as a tight end too, and then one really poor performance against Buffalo with only 4 fantasy points. So wasn't quite as consistent as we've seen in years past, but overall not someone that you're ever really considering benching. Gave you plenty of boom weeks and gave you, positional advantage on those weeks, especially when he was hitting a top 3 tight end. His draft price is actually a little bit more affordable, especially outside of tight end premium leagues this year. You can typically get him. I've seen him go as late as the 5th, but typically you're going to have to spend around a 4th round pick, which I don't necessarily hate it because of what you're getting. But the reason why I'm probably not going to do it myself is that tier of wide receivers going around the 3rd, 4th round, and a couple running backs, but for the most part, that wide receiver group is so enticing. It's hard for me to jump and take Zach Ertz when I know that there's a lot of tight ends that we're expecting a few of them to break out this year that you can get much later in drafts. I'd rather take the wide receivers going around where Zach Ertz is going. So when we get into more strategy videos, probably not going to be recommending taking Zach Ertz, but if you get him or you have him in a dynasty league, there's still plenty to like about him. Last year he finished with the 2nd most targets amongst tight ends with 134. He had the 4th highest target share of tight ends with 23.8%, 23.7% dominator rating. He did lead the league in tight ends for drops, but considering he had some of the most targets, you can kind of brush that off a little bit. You can expect there to be a few more drops because he had so many more targets than most tight ends. Definitely not as agile as he used to be. His target separation only 26th amongst tight ends, but he's still coming down with a lot of contested catches. Had the 5th highest contested catch rate of 27.6%. True catch rate was also a little bit lower. So while not every game was the most efficient game for Zach Ertz, he's getting peppered with so many targets. This is kind of like an Ezekiel Elliott take where it's like, okay, well, maybe his efficiency isn't as good as it was a few years ago, and he is getting older. Even if the efficiency stays a little bit poorer, it really doesn't matter because he's getting the volume, and volume in this context is king, and we're expecting the volume to still be there for Zach Ertz. So in terms of projections, probably going to keep him maybe a little bit lower, with Jalen Reagor coming into the fold, Deshaun Jackson potentially being healthy for a longer stretch than one game, and Dallas Goedert possibly taking on more of a prominent role, assuming he doesn't have lingering issues from the sucker punch that he endured this last week. We have Zach Ertz getting 80 receptions, 831 receiving yards, and 5 total touchdowns, which is good enough for 193.8 fantasy points, which has him ranked as tight end number 4. We don't have a very high upside ranking for him because, last year almost every single receiver on that team was hurt. Miles Sanders was getting a lot of targets out of the backfield, but even he got hurt towards the end of the year. What more can you expect to go right for Zach Ertz? Dallas Goedert was out for a portion of the season last year, and we're projecting him pretty close to where he finished last season. So there's not really much more you can expect for him to go up at this point in his career. So you're just hoping that he maintains what he's been able to do. If you can get him at value, I still like him. He should still be a tight end that you can confidently start every week if you hate having to play the streaming game or don't want to risk waiting and trying to pick of the massive tier of potential breakout tight ends. You don't want to risk taking a tight end that busts. I totally understand why you'd like him. I like him a lot more in tight end premium leagues as well, just because that reception total is going to be amongst the highest, even higher than guys like Mark Andrews who are going before him. So there's a lot of value in Zach Ertz. It's coming in a year where there's just greater value with the players around him where you'd have to take him. So unless he falls to the 5th round, I'm probably not going to be targeting him too much in any of the drafts that I am a part of. But that's my take. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and let me know if there's anyone else on the Eagles you'd like me to break down. Be happy to go back once we're done with all of the other teams and go through that for you guys. And that's pretty much it. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.